Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your kind remarks, Provost Baker, and for hosting the inaugural War Horse Symposium. Before I move on, I'd like to thank the Harris team, the Office of Military Affiliated Communities, the sponsors and donors who made this day possible, and my teammates and fellow writers at the War Horse. I'm excited to share this day with each of you and grateful for all of the contributions that you've made to get us here today. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the War Horse Symposium. For the past 7 years, our nonprofit newsroom has grown from a Kickstarter campaign to publishing award-winning reporting in partnership with leading newsrooms. This work has led to bipartisan changes in military and federal law, and it has empowered countless veterans and military families and communities across the United States. In addition to our reporting, we also host writing seminars for veterans and military families, where we bring together award-winning journalists and authors for expenses-paid writing retreats to help them publish their own stories of service. To date, our graduates and other War Horse writers have published hundreds of these stories, which form the emotional cornerstone for everything that we do at the War Horse, and they've been republished by newsrooms all across our country. Some of those writers have spoken at national conferences, they've published memoirs, and others have launched careers as journalists and found solace in writing. But what they all have in common is that they represent the most authentic voices from within the veteran and military community. Too frequently, military reporting is often done by people who don't understand it, and these first-person narratives mean the stories that are being told are from a boots-on-the-ground perspective. In short, the War Horse team treats reporting about veterans and military families, as well as training the next generation of military writers with the respect and the diligence that it deserves. It also means that the War Horse is committing to helping rebuild trust in the journalism industry and regaining the confidence of the public. Having walked on both sides of the fence as a Marine and now as a reporter, I've learned that journalists, veterans, and military families all have more in common than most people realize. Together, we are largely misunderstood by the communities that we serve, and while it may be in different ways, we all play a vital role in our democracy. Before my journalism career, I served as a Marine for 10 years, enlisting from the suburbs of Boston shortly after 9/11. Ultimately, I was medically retired after being wounded on a foot patrol in Helmand Province. But like my squad in Afghanistan, the War Horse's growing team makes it impossible for me to give up. Talented business leaders like Sam Daniels and Randy Howard, dogged reporters and editors like Kelly Kennedy, Sonner Kurt, Kristen Davis, and Baby Garcia, and awesome communications professionals like Babs Chase and Dave LePan. I also want to thank David Christinger, who has trained 60 writers during our 5 writing seminars. And alongside his students, Ellie Vorhaben and Grant Harwood, they wrote the white paper that is being showcased today. Lastly, I'd like to thank my daughter Maddie and my wife Mel, who've never let me give on myself or the War Horse. I love you both. When I first left active duty, my wife was the one to tell me I had a second chance to do whatever made me happy in my life. In 2013, I began working as a military reporter at the Jacksonville Daily News. I was covering Camp Lejeune, the base that I served at for most of my career. But what I didn't realize when I started was how dying news ecosystems harm military communities. I also didn't know that I would be one of their last full-time military reporters covering the second largest Marine Corps base in the entire world. I reported on the first women to graduate from Marine infantry training, and I covered the local VA healthcare system. I profiled World War II veterans and wrote about base schools and homelessness. I highlighted military families overcoming trauma and loss, and stories about civilians joining forces with veterans and military families to bridge the military and civilian divide. Over the last decade, and since I've launched the War Horse, I've watched as the DOD and the VA and their budgets have risen to nearly $1 trillion, more than twice what our country spends on healthcare, education, infrastructure, and diplomacy combined. Meanwhile, reporting about the military makes up less than 5% of all news coverage. The problem is growing worse, and military reporters are being driven from the industry in droves. In 2020 alone, the Military Times conglomerate decimated its staff. Atlantic Media divested Defense One. Task and Purpose was sold to a hedge fund. Stars and Stripes was nearly defunded by the Defense Department. And the New York Times, one of the most profitable newspapers in the entire world, discontinued its at-war blog. As Americans, we have a long tradition of relying on journalists to relay the realities of military service. Without a broader public awareness of what veterans and military families are experiencing, citizens and elected officials are unlikely to make informed decisions about policies at home or abroad. And that's where the War Horse comes in. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone at the Logan Center for the Arts and those joining us virtually for participating in today's crucial conversation and for joining us at the inaugural War Horse Symposium. Regardless of your military affiliation, I hope the participation of senior leaders from the DOD and the VA and such influential journalists underscores the critical role that military reporting has on our national security and the health of our democracy. I hope the War Horse Symposium and the white paper itself help to shed light on how issues that may seem limited to veterans and military families, in truth, have major implications for all Americans. It is now my tremendous honor to make an introduction that I never thought I would, Bob Woodward, who will discuss his military service and the importance of a vibrant fourth estate. Thank you all.